¿Qué ondas, primos y primas? And welcome to my Primos podcast. My name is Freddie. With me tonight, of course, is my primo and yours, Mr. Kevin Garcia.com. Say what's up, Kevin.
What's up? Oh man, it's good to be back. Although I did like the last episode. I was listening to The Last of Us with you and Walter, and and I enjoyed it. I was
Yeah, man.
neck deep in South by Southwest at that time.
You're always doing something, though, man. You're doing cons. You're doing, well, not conning people, but you're at cons.
I mean, maybe as
You're,
well. I mean, what is teaching if not? No, I'm kidding. No,
ooh.
but no, yeah. The past 2 weeks, I had the Hill Country Comic Con in New Braunfels. I had South by EDU. I was taking my students there. They were covering it as reporters. I had BIPOC Pop, the Power of BIPOC Pop, hosted by Professor Aldama and UT. I was part of that conference. And then South by Southwest itself, I was covering it. I had my students there, and I was also working the event as well, as I do every year.
So, am I going to see footage of you on the red carpet and all that?
You know, it's funny. I actually got a red carpet interview for the first time ever. I've been a journalist for 20 years, but over 20 years. But most of that was print. You know, I was a newspaper reporter for 10 years. There's no call for red carpet interviews in the newspaper. Nobody needs that. And since I was going to be at the event anyway, I ran into some people that were working as part of a show, and I said, you know what, this is not a bad idea. So I contacted the PR person in charge of that show. It's called Shatterbelt. It's a new independently financed like Twilight Zone type series, and I was like, cool, I'd love to check this out. Can I interview the director or some of the actors? And the PR people contacted me the night before the premiere and said, hey, you want to be on the red carpet? And I was like, sure. So I was on the red carpet interviewing actors and the director, and also Patton Oswalt, who stars in one of the episodes. So that was a lot of fun. I'll put those together soon enough and put them on TikTok or something.
Yeah, man, you're TikTok stardom. You're getting all the attention up there. Help the brand. Put yourself out there more. But Kevin, we have some guests tonight.
Yes,
I want to know if you can go ahead and do the intros for us. Who do we have visiting tonight for all the primos to listen to?
We have two of the preeminent Latino voices in let me phrase that. Two of the preeminent voices in promoting the culture of our people, of our history, of other creators who are Latino, Latina, Latine. David Bowles, for example, is a professor. He is a scholar. He's a writer. He's done graphic novels. He's done novels. He's got podcasts. I like following the Obsidian Codex, for example, on all the other podcast apps when I'm not listening to my Primos podcast. David, welcome here and joining us. What are you going to tell us about Chispa coming up?
Yeah. We're happy to be on and to be able to talk to you about our upcoming slate of titles from Chispa, are the Latinx imprint of Scout Comics, and movie tie-ins and all kinds of cool stuff. So we have a lot to chat about.
Exciting stuff.
Yeah.
But who else do we have today? You can't forget this man. I think he's probably tied for appearances on this show with when we had a discussion.
This is why Kevin's not introducing him, because like everybody who's listening already knows
well, that's the thing. Exactly. It's like the man who needs no introduction. David said we, and I wanted to get who that we was right now, and that is Hector Rodriguez, the creator of El Peso Hero. As I keep saying the NPR star, because I feel like every time I'm listening to NPR, they mention him at some point, so I'm like, he's there constantly.
He's the stock audio and stock image of
well, no, because
Latino comic book creator.
10 years ago, he created this amazing superhero who's basically like, I consider him to be a lot like the first couple of years of Superman in Action Comics, where he was kind of fighting for the little guy and was, this bulletproof guy that wasn't throwing planets around, but was definitely more than your average person. But he's doing that on the border, covering and fighting for issues that are important to people on the border. Hector, thank you for joining us.
Hey, pleasure. Thank you, Kev. Thank you, Primo Freddy. We got some really exciting projects to share with you guys, and it's gonna be the Chispa, the spark.
Nice.
For many more, right?
That's part of the rationale behind the name, and for its use to stand in for superhero in our comics. So we call our superheroes Chispas, and we do believe in comunidad and in the important role that leaders in the community or people who have a particular privilege or a position a certain way to use whatever tools they have, whatever position, whatever power, to spark change for the rest of the community. And that's, one of our mission statements.
Would you say leaders like a teacher who also writes a superhero comic book and helps host Latino Comic Cons, or leaders like a professor who also
who
writes?
Do we know like that?
Yeah, no, but I agree. I love that you said that.
I
Chispa.
do agree. Yeah, I think you're right, Kevin. I think that in real life, Chispas often have kind of mundane or ordinary day jobs, and then are trying to do things on the side and investing a lot of energy and money that they probably shouldn't be spending on anything else, but in doing everything they can to promote Latinidad, in the case of the four of us, our Mexican American heritage and Mexican Americans on the border in the Southwest of the United States. And I think it's a special, important thing. And so, when Hector and I were thinking about, we want to do a superhero universe within Chispa. We want to do our own take on it. So right away, the very first thing Hector said is, they're not gonna be vigilantes. They're not gonna be superpowered Boy Scouts. They're not gonna be cops. They're going to be, they're not going to hide their faces, although they may have like masks to protect them from, from bullets and things like that. But they're not going to be about hiding who they are. They're going to be about, being members of their community and sparking change in their community. And he was the one who suggested when we found out, because I don't know whether listeners will know this, but the word superhero, well, you can use it casually. You can have a comic. Superhero is actually a copyrighted term. Marvel and DC hold a joint copyright, and you can't actually call something. You can't title. You can't say Chispa Superhero Universe, because you will be taken to court.
Isn't that insane? That is
fucking Marvel.
Yeah, Marvel and DC jointly own superhero, just like you said. That's been something going on for decades. I remember there was an indie comic in the late 90s called Superhero Happy Hour, and they got a cease and desist, and they had to republish it as Hero Happy Hour, which is fine as a name, but the whole reason is not.
No, but that shows you how afraid of change they are, man, right? They're afraid of someone coming in to disrupt anything. Just the fact that someone can, at the end of the day, I'm just going to say nothing's new under the sun, but the fact that they're afraid of somebody coming in and taking something that we can improve upon, the ideal of these superpowered or super, I guess, not even superpowered, but just heroes in a sense, right? These chispas, as you say, can come out and fucking wreck and be the heroes or be the badasses that we know they can be. And they're so afraid of just the word hero or superhero being used. Man, that's shitty.
Yeah, I want to step. Kevin, you were talking like before we started recording about the movie Air that you saw at South by Southwest. Yeah. And one of the things that feels really gross about the way Marvel and DC do things is they want to like be throwing BIPOC communities and the queer community and other underrepresented groups a bone and be like, oh, okay, well, we're going to let you have your little Mexican American superhero. We're going to let you have your black superhero, whatever. But we're going to control the idea of superheroes exclusively. And it's kind of like in Air, the notion of, oh, well, we're going to give this, we're going to make this young black basketball player.
Basketball.
He is the ultimate athlete. He can do anything.
Foosball player.
Well,
we're going to make him very, very rich by taking his talent and turning into like a product and to well, as a marketability kind of thing. And to me, that feels like what DC and Marvel try to do. And we don't want to do things that way. We have a very different philosophy. And which is why when Hector said, let's call them Chispas, at first I was like, really? But then more thought about it, I was like, yeah, let's call them Chispas.
I want to give this context for a quick second. So Air, the Ben Affleck movie about Michael Jordan becoming the name Jordan behind Nike. I saw it. I enjoyed it in the sense that the acting was beautiful. I did not enjoy it in the sense that the story was essentially what I was afraid it was going to be, which is the story of the first black man as an athlete, to control his likeness, his name, to profit from it, to be able to get a percentage of it. And the story is entirely about the white guys in the boardroom. That is entirely what the movie's about. Michael Jordan does not even appear in the movie at all, even as another actor playing him. They do have an actor who is his body double, but you never see his face. He has like 3 lines off camera, so it's fine.
That the fucking inspiration for everything would have a bigger role than just a body shot.
Yeah, I mean, right? This was Ben Affleck's goal going in, but at the same time, was that the story that needs told? And that brings us back to David's point, which is these bigger companies are having, I hate to use the word token, but they're doing these characters that are like, hey, here's a character that's this. We now have had our black movie. We've had our female movie. Right? Diversity as they allow it. Whereas
we don't really want it, diversity.
Exactly. Yeah. Whereas Chispa, to real quick to explain what that is to everybody who's listening right now, Chispa is a brand that is part of, let me phrase part of, going to be published by Scout Comics, right? Scout Comics is an independent publisher. They have a lot of really good books out. I really loved The Mall, for example. And Chispa as a sub brand, as a sub line of Scout, is going to be having Latina creators making their own books. An imprint. There's the word I'm looking for. I could not find that word. And I also love that what you said a second ago, what Hector said, or what both of you guys said, that Chispa is the name for the heroes. As a comic fan, I love when the Ultraverse had the Ultras are here, or the Marvels are like the Age of Marvels, and DC, it's the Meta-Humans, and I love the idea that each universe has their own name for whatever these greater than normal people are, even if they're greater than normal in attitude more than power.
I'm all for it as long as we don't eventually have a guy named El Spark, then I'm okay with it. Okay.
Yeah.
Hector nixed that idea, dude. Sorry.
Hector, make the call, man.
Gonna have to tell Phil that he can't have El Spark.
Hector Garza will thank me for that because he's all against all that shit.
Yeah.
There's more to it than El Fuerte, El Strongo, El Sparko.
Yeah.
No, like
El Strong Dude.
Because Oscar, one of our primos, he had said that working in video games, they wanted to make a Mexican themed video game, and they were saying call him El Flame, and I was like, he was very opposed to that idea.
El Shock. And stuff like that. So no, I mean, I'm excited for it. I mean, the fact that we can do that,
literally the very first of the 13. So, Hector, I'm talking a lot. Interrupt me anytime.
No, yeah, go ahead, dude. I'm like,
Hector's like, I have a newborn, dude. I have had a long day. Fucking talk, David. So the idea is we wanted to make this ChispaVerse, and our first. So we don't just want to have single, a Latino superhero here. We want to have an entire team of like all Mexican American and Mexican to start with, and they're called the 13. And literally the very first superhero, which is written by Hector, de hecho, his name is Sopilote. And we had to talk about it. We're like, should we call him Sopilote? Should we call him we can't use the Vulture because the Vulture is already fucking Marvel, a villain, and da 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 da. And I was like, no, I mean, fuck people who don't know Spanish. If they can't say Sopilote, I mean, it's not that hard. Sopilote. Oh, look, it's Zopilote. I mean, that's fine. I'm not, or if they say Zopilote,
close enough, right?
It's just it's so Mexican because Sopilote is Nahuatl. It's Sopilotl, which means is like buitre, like vulture, right?
Right.
But it's a Nahuatl word. Yeah, and so
if you can pronounce Game of Thrones characters, they can say Sopilote.
Hector, how many kaiju
can you pronounce? And they're like, Zopilote. Chinga tu madre. Sorry.
How many kaiju can't you pronounce, Hector? Think about it. You're a Godzilla fan, like all the shit that we grew up watching, like all that stuff.
Exactly. I love Freddie that you said kaiju because one of the things that's been big for me is that 20 years ago, if you asked the average American on the street, white American primarily, what a kaiju was or what a yokai was, they wouldn't know. Now those terms have become part of pop culture. They've become part of definitely geek culture. And what I would love to see elements of Mesoamerican culture, of Mexican culture, of Latin American culture permeate that kind of pop culture sense to be able to become part of that again. And I feel like superheroes is the way to go.
Yeah, I mean,
superheroes and also kaiju, right, Hector?
Kaiju, yeah, 100%. Stay tuned.
So yeah, we're trying to be careful about like the not calling you up at 4 o'clock in the morning and having you edit shit out, but
please don't.
On the hills. Well, let's talk the 13 and then let's talk kaiju because we do have actually one of our first major titles is coming out that has a movie tie-in at the end of April. Is a kaiju flick, arguably, and so we'll talk about that, and then talk about what that opens up for the comic universe. So yeah, Sopilote is the first one. So we have these 13 Mexican and Mexican American young people. They all turn 18 one day after the other. There's 1, 2, 3, 13 of them, and on their 18th birthday, boom, powers from God knows where. Right? I like I've told people they're like spiritual mutants. But then again, we can't actually use the word mutant.
I was going to say that's a forbidden word right there.
Yeah, Marvel has the friggin' copyright on the word.
Oh my god!
Call them Titans. Wait, no, not that one.
We can't use that either.
So, so yeah, the 13 are like their powers come from their Mesoamerican day sign. So literally, Sopilote is born on the day 1 vulture. Se Sopilotl and Nahuatl, and then each one after that, all the way down to 13 rabbit, which we'll get to in a second with Kevin, is their powers come from that day sign. So Sopilote is how would you describe his character, Hector?
Well, yeah, I mean it's very grounded. We're talking about a kid growing up in the middle, right, of Ciudad Mexico in this case, in an urban setting, and it comes, as a character where he is just like any teenager, you're trying to, kind of that quest of who you are, what's your purpose in this world, and so with Sopilote, with Bruno, he's trying to, do the best he can within his community. And in this case, I'm not going to ruin any of the story arc, but it is very well grounded. At the same time, I try to, have some action, but also be emotionally, have a emotional compass to that, And so,
what is it? At that age, a friend of mine said it once. He's like, I wrote a story about this kid that's kind of in between, right after high school. You're kind of meandering, and he called it the worst part of your life, because you're kind of stuck in between. You don't know where you're going. It's freedom, but is it really? Everyone's expecting you to move on, but you're not ready, and they can't push you, but they can. It becomes like a fucking battle on its own just to know where to go from there. So that age is pretty tough to have all these Chispas come into that.
Yeah. One thing
go ahead, Kevin.
Well, one thing I love about Sopilote so far, because I've only seen the preview images and heard Hector talk about it, is his visual. Because I feel like as we go through the 13, and we're not going to cover all of them here, certainly we'll cover some of them, but they all kind of fit these, like, on the one hand, an archetype that like audiences can be familiar with, but on the other hand, they're going to go an entirely different direction with it. And as I look at Sopilote, I think here is our Dark Avenger. Here is our Dark Knight. Here is this person wearing a cape and cowl, and he's got like a distinctive silhouette as you see him lit up from behind. And this is a tradition that goes back, I mean, obviously Batman, but also the Shadow, and also the Phantom, and all these other heroes. And I love the idea of having this really traditional hero, but in this new dynamic, this new paradigm, be the first one out the gate. I love that idea.
Yeah, and at the same time, I try not to hit the militaristic, undertone.
If I could, you're talking about Batman, right? We
could say it.
I want to touch on Hector's thing real quick. I have a personal theory that I've mentioned to a few people, and that is, if you make your own Batman pastiche, and you do it completely straight-faced, like you don't do it with any level of satire or self-awareness, you're probably a fascist. And I'm not saying Batman is necessarily, right? But I'm saying that Batman people who just take off that surface veneer of Batman, they don't go the right direction with it. But saying that we have somebody like Hector, who again has this background with El Paso Hero, I feel like you're not going to go that direction with this guy.
No. Yeah. It was like the whole thing of like, let's flip people's expectations. They're going to see the character. They're going to assume that it is, one of these kinds of guys. What's the name of the one from with Watchmen, Night Owl or somebody like that?
Yeah.
Right?
Offshoot.
Yeah, but he's really like a good, kid.
Yeah,
like his personality is a lot more like Clark Kent or something than it is like Bruce Wayne. He's not a brooding, dark. His dad is very much alive. There's no pearls strewn in an alleyway.
Well, was this? Can I ask? Is this purposefully the lead though? Because we want to lead with something completely not expected. I mean,
I think it happened organically, Freddie. Yeah, I think it happened organically, Freddie. Just like when we laid out the day signs, that was the first day sign. And then right away, Hector's like, "I want to do that one. I've got some ideas." And like it
was funny because I read it and I'm like, "Oh God, I want to do it." And Dave's like, "Yeah, dude, I want you to do that." It's like we kind of, and I'm like, "Oh."
We're often on the same wavelength.
Yeah.
Like you're the guy for this one. Like this just fits. It's right in your wheelhouse.
Yeah. And because, and his powers are, he does have the power of flight, and he kind of has like this evildoer detector thing, which feels very much like the Shadow or, one of those like old school kind of,
detects the rot,
the rot in the hearts of people. And
so I love that.
So he's like a great team leader, and we're basically setting him up to be kind of like the leader of the team. And the first three heroes out the gate feel to me kind of like a trio, kind of like like the Trinity or something like that. So we've got Sopilote, we've got Pyroclast, which is being written, which is already the one shot's already been written by Fede Aldama, and great story. Great character. This is really, really cool. And then The Wake, that was written by Jasmine Mendez and Lupe Mendez out of Houston, and that's another great story. And she's like our Afro-Mexicana like Flash character, and so she's super fast. And then the other character,
I know it's hard to talk to because you don't want to give a lot away. You want to give
but I mean the basic the basics of the characters, I think it's cool to talk about, because the Pyroclast is basically kind of like if in the Fantastic Four, if the Human Torch and the Thing were one individual. Cool. There's both a rocky creature and a fiery creature, and there are lots of like lava rock creatures, and so like part of the trick was finding a way into that character that was unique, and Dr. Aldama he found a really cool way to do it, and we've got a great person illustrating it. But yeah, those three are really, really great. And then further down the road, we've got all kinds of really interesting writers writing it. We've got Veronique Medrano, who is a Tejana and country singer, writing. She wrote Dragon Thrall. We've got Kevin writing Coneja. I'm writing Blue Deer. So we've got like this really interesting. We've got people who have experience writing comics, people who are novelists, people who are poets, screenwriters. We just got all kinds of really interesting, because in the first place, it's not like there's a shit ton of Mexican and Mexican American comic writers that you can turn to and say, "Hey guys, come on board," because they've been excluded from the world of traditional comics for so long that it's tougher, and it's really tough to kind of like get somebody who's doing an indie comic to be like, "Hey, can you put your indie comic on hold for a second and come write a comic for us?" Because they're like, I've been burned by that kind of stuff. But this is great, because what we're doing is building out this whole new generation of comic book writers who are going to publish really cool stuff with us, and then go on hopefully to even more amazing things. And all these 13 one-shots are building up to the ongoing series that's going to like drop middle of next year, which is going to be written. I mean, he hasn't signed the contract, but he's basically agreed to it. So I'm going to say Terry Blass is going to write our first arc of the.
That would be beautiful.
Awesome.
I love Terry's work.
Terry,
he's great. So he's already digging into the scripts, the first 6 scripts that have been written, and he's looking forward to reading the next 7. And the basic idea is that these 13 heroes then get brought together by this mysterious figure, Father Tonal, who runs a supposedly Catholic university, and they all get a free ride to it. But they show up, and it's Professor X's mansion or whatever.
I was going to say it's some kind of mansion for children who are gifted in some way.
Yeah, they have a mutation of some sort.
Now you mentioned the first half. I think the plan right now that's been announced already is that the first, well, you can't do half of 13, I guess, but the first more or less half should be ready ideally by this summer, right? That's the plan.
Yeah. They'll be ready by the summer. The actual kind of publication schedule is something that we're working on with Scout, because in order to get these books into comic book stores that are notoriously very, conservative isn't the right word, but they're very traditional in the sense of what they want and stuff like
that.
They're
gun shy.
They're gun shy. It's a good way of putting it. We have to be very careful, and so distributing it there, we're going to have to go with a more traditional, 1 or maybe 2 issues per month over the course of the summer. But it definitely they will be ready at the beginning of the summer. We had really hoped. It's still up in the air whether we're going to be at San Diego Comic-Con. To be honest with you, there are lots of issues that are being debated between Scout and Mucho Mas Media and so forth. But that had been the plan to have at least the first 3. It would have been nice to have the first 6, but just the first 3 for sure at San Diego Comic-Con. They'll be ready by then. We'll see what happens. But it's a really volatile kind of interesting right now. Coming out of the pandemic, and conventions are still a little wonky.
Right.
One thing you mentioned the pandemic. These comics are set real time, right? So So for the characters, it is 2023, 2024. It is definitely going to be this current time period. So these are going to be young people, much like my students, that are coming off of going to high school through the pandemic. This is just like real people. So I think that's actually really appropriate.
Yeah, I do, and I want them to age in real time. I want for 30 years from now for all these characters to be 48, and there's not going to be, as long as I have anything to say about it, there will not be a reset. Will never be
never blow up the universe.
Yeah,
you might blow up the universe, but it will continue afterwards anyway.
Exactly. We can still blow up the universe, but then everything will, they will continue aging.
Exactly. Which honestly, again, as a longtime reader, I love that. For example, I can go back to Savage Dragon from 1990, and it's 30 years ago for the characters. I enjoy that. I liked that when Invincible was coming out, that it was real time for all the characters. They were growing up with the readers.
Yeah. I really do think that, and that's one of the reasons that we decided to go with them being so young, because we want to give them full rich careers. We want them to go through their couple of years of schooling under Father Tonal and learning how to work together as a team and grappling with that kind of stuff, and then be off on adventures in smaller teams, and then coming together for the big bad every year or so as a massive team. The kind of Avengers, Justice League things that people are used to.
So, David, your book is going to be Blue Deer, and you have a long experience, like Hector, writing comics. You've done several graphic novels now. What can you tell us about Blue Deer, even though it's toward the end of the line?
Yeah, it's comic 12. The character is from Alice, Texas, and I think like a lot of these stories, his origin story is going to revolve around kind of threats to the community, to the town. In his particular case, they've found an oil company has found a petroleum deposit next to the lake that's right north of Alice, and they're building the facilities there will ruin the park for kids and stuff like that. And so one of the cool things about 12 Deer was about the character who was born on the day 12 Deer is that I was like trying to think of like what kind of deer powers can I, and then I was thinking about the Huichol people, and the Guajarita people, and like how to make the blue deer one of their gods. It's related to like their peyote ceremonies and so forth, relevant to this guy's powers. And so I made him be at like a quarter Huichol. His grandfather comes from the area around San Luis Potosí, and he's just kind of like inherited this tendency to be a shaman that manifests itself on his 18th birthday. And so he's got these powers, and he's able to like project like shared hallucinations on people and make people see things. But if he takes peyote, he can like really, it's like, you know, he can make it feel so real to people. So, you know, I was, as I was writing it, I was like, this is going to be controversial. A superhero to really trigger their powers has to take a hallucinogen. But because of, you know, the way our mestizaje works and our indigenous roots and how important peyote is, and in the comic book it's never called peyote, it's called by its Huichol name, which I think is kind of cool as well, just to like avoid it. But on this podcast we'll say it's peyote, people. Is this understanding that, you know, that those natural hallucinogenic drugs were a way for indigenous people to connect with their ancestors, with the gods and stuff like that, and to kind of pay homage to that. And it's a lot of fun. It's going to be visually very cool with lots of, you know, those Huichol colors and iconography. It's gonna be a lot of fun. But he's like the weird one. He's like that, you know, what was the name of like remember under Vertigo, was it
Shade the Changing Man?
Shade the Changing Man. Like,
yeah, I was just going to say, this is a character who's like Shade, kind of sharing his hallucination with the world. But even though he's being kind of powered by I don't want to say a drug, but by a chemical reaction, it's not. I'm assuming not playing it up as a joke. This is more of an honor of the traditions of his ancestors,
exactly.
Which they didn't see it as a joke, you know.
No, they didn't. And I mean, his grandfather's the one who on his 18th birthday, and when he recognizes that his grandson is able to do this, because he's like in the middle of his birthday celebration, like accidentally like just stumbled into it and has projected a vision onto everybody. And his grandfather's like, wow, okay, you have this power. Let me show you how you can, like, you know, make it even stronger. And he gives him, you know, just a button of peyote, and that's what happens. And so, yeah, it's played. I want to play it seriously. It's different from Shade in that way. Shade is a lot more comedic than what I want to do.
But depending on the writer, yeah. But
yeah, sometimes it can get kind of dark, right? Yeah. And kind of bleak even. But yeah, that's he's that one hero that's a little more psychedelic. You know, and we tried to do that. We tried to have heroes all be a little different. And like, so the hero that you're writing, Coneja, is also like, you know, very different from the others.
I wanted to ask about that. Can you like give us the last one? But
when I was first talking with you guys about the 13, and the idea came up of, well, what if we had like a Latina squirrel girl? I immediately was like, oh, I want to do that. I love this concept of a character that is just so innocent and pure, but also at the same time believes so strongly in doing what is right because it is right, that she wants to share that with the world, that I was like, oh, I want to do that character. This character that you know, one thing I like about, for example, the Captain America movies is Captain America, Steve Rogers, never has a story arc. Everyone else has a story arc. Everyone else adapts to him, you know, but he maintains this belief and this hope. And I want to have this eternally hopeful character. And as Coneja, I love digging into the research, of course. So I kept looking into, well, what are the meanings and symbols of rabbits with Mesoamerica? And of course, there's a lot of connections to the moon. And sure, she's a big jumper, so we have that. Because of that moon connection, I want to set her near Houston because that just feels right, you know. But also, the other thing I asked was, hey, we have these villains here. And I really wanted to use one of them. And there's one that's described as kind of like a Latina Sabretooth. And I'm just like, what happens if you take this eternally hopeful character and throw her against a completely irredeemable monster? Somebody who cannot be shaken or changed. Somebody whose story arc will not improve. And I'm like, that's a story I want to tell. And then one of the things we talked about was having art that matches it. So I went looking for artists that definitely have this idea of like they can show happy and cool, but also bloody and intense. And I'm like, that's the story I want. What happens when you take an eternally hopeful hero and you throw them against a remorseless monster? And just do that in 22 pages.
I love it. I love it. I do think that it's nice to have characters who are decidedly one thing or another, especially when then you put them in contrast with each other. That's always a lot of fun.
I like it. I like the idea, man. I've been in the dark. I know you've kind of held that real close to yourself, but I dig the idea. I think it's awesome that these characters, these Chispas, are gonna come out and just really do something different. That's what I'm excited about.
Hey, Freddie, you say I'm keeping you in the dark, but NDAs are no joke.
Oh yeah.
He doesn't want Hector and me to show up at his house with like baseball bats and be like, "Wait,
I know. El Paso Hero is not just a story."
But Hector, that smile is just for the cameras, the red carpet. But when behind closed doors, watch out, everybody! A monster.
Yeah. Speaking of monsters, the Chispa is already putting out the Black Demon, right? Which is you kept alluding to this kaiju story. David, what is Black Demon?
So Black Demon, it's a like a property, an IP that Mucho Mas Media has been developing for several years. I worked with Javier Chapa, the producer and owner of Mucho Mas Media, several years ago, and like he came to me and he was like, "Dude, have you heard this legend in Mexico?" And of course, like Hector, he and I are both big lovers of monsters. So anytime there's a monster story, especially in Mexico, like of course we know about it. And he said, all these fishermen off the coast of Baja California keep complaining about this massive black shark that destroys boats and eats catch and stuff like that. And I go, yeah, the El Demonio Negro, the Black Demon, I've heard of it. He's like, I think that would make an amazing movie. And I think it was around the time they were filming Meg, or like they were talking about it or something like that. And so we started thinking about stories we could tell. And I took a couple of shots at it. I wrote a screenplay, but mine was like a little more cerebral, a little like weirder, and probably like overly expensive to make.
All the best movies are.
Yeah. Eventually, we were like, okay, let's try to find a more streamlined, simpler way in. And he eventually found somebody who had a really great idea for story. And so the movie went off in that direction, a little more straightforward, environmental, because the idea we came up with, the core thing that Javi and I developed was that the Black Demon is a servant of the gods who are upset with the way humanity is polluting the ocean and otherwise destroying the environment. And so the Black Demon's number one target is going to be people who are fucking with the environment. And so in that case, the story that's being told in the film that's actually coming out April 28th, heads up, everybody's going to be a really, really badass film. Who does it star? Hector, Josh
Lucas. Josh Lucas.
Josh Lucas from Yellowstone and a bunch of other stuff. The Purge, the most recent Purge.
Yeah, I have it.
It's got also one of the actresses from that most recent Purge film, the one that had like Tenoch Huerta in it. I don't know if you guys remember the last.
Wait, who's this Tenoch Huerta person you mentioned? I've never.
I know. He's a really obscure Mexican actor. You should look him up. That's some good stuff.
Wait, there are Mexican actors?
Let them act.
I think it's swim.
He did like an indie film back in like 2009.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, I think it was on a Netflix show too. Anyway,
something about it.
So this in this movie, Josh plays an oil man, a guy who goes to oil rigs and is there to inspect them, and he's like the face of the company.
He brings his family in, kind of like a vacation type gig. Hey,
he's supposed to go through the checklist and check off that the rig is fine, but the rig's not fine. The community has been under attack by the Black Demon for like weeks now, and he and his family are going to end up, being targeted by it. So it's a really, really great script. But what we continued doing was working on like the universe of the Black Demon, and when Hector and I were brought on board as part of Chispa, being kaiju fans, what did we think? What do we think? Let's do it. Let's create an anthology series around the Black Demon. In fact, the very first comic we put out was Attack on Acapulco, right? Which was like a little ash can, a little short story set in that universe and kind of set the tone for what we want to do. And so we've got, in tandem with that film, we have the very first issue of Black Demon Tales coming out. In fact, it's up for order on Comixology, Kindle, every from Diamond. Store. Yeah. It's ready to go. And the first issue is written by Hector, and it's really great. It takes place in the 80s. Which is really cool. Tell them why you said it in the 80s.
Yeah, no. So this is this story focuses on a Mexican Navy researcher, Bella Gonzalez. And there's a incident where she, this turning point where afterwards she dedicates the rest of her life trying to destroy El Demonio Negro, the Black Demon. Yeah, and so the tone of the story, the style, I love retro 80s, and the synth and just the acid washes, and there's so many subcultures, within the 80s, and then you look into the retro futuristic aspects of it, like cassette punk, and just all these, really cool styles, and so I really try to inject some of these into as well as some of the colorings. And so it's one of those things where I kind of brought it, the creative team just right where it is. Yes, there you go, synthwave soundtrack.
We need a synthwave soundtrack for the comic, right?
Yeah, included with the purchase, a little like CD with some original synth music.
That would be super cool.
It's so is the creative team is just tuned enough, right, with the right colorist and the right artist, where we're able to be very the art, it's very approachable, but at the same time you really get it speaks to the world too, especially the colors. It's very bright looking comic, especially for a kaiju book too. And I say kaiju book because it is a Mexican kaiju. This huge megalodon.
It is.
Is there a Mexican word for kaiju that's not trademarked that we can use?
I mean, there's different monsters, right, David? There's different giants.
Yeah. I was gonna say, luckily, the word kaiju is not copyrighted by anybody. The Japanese are like, fuck, we're not gonna copyright the word kaiju. That's stupid.
Surprisingly, because Nintendo's crazy when it comes to copyright.
Yeah.
Japanese companies are very copyright law. That's crazy.
But there are many possible kaiju in Mexican lore and mythology, stuff like that. So, but yeah, one of the cool things about setting up Bella as kind of like the opponent of the Black Demon and setting her up in the 80s is we get to do all these we could tell all kinds of fun stories between the 80s and the present day time in the movie, where we have her age and have different adventures, and then we can eventually bring her into an adventure in the near future where we can do this kind of like Ripley / what's the chick from the Halloween series?
So
Laurie Strode, that kind of
Laurie Strode. Yeah. So what you're saying is you're going to clone her, have her have the baby queen inside her chest, and then we're going to have her have one as a baby that wants to adopt her.
A baby Black Demon bursts out of in a very
and it should burst out at full size, by the way, full size, out of her chest.
So we have to make her into a kaiju first.
No, she's normal size, but full size kaiju bursts out. That's how it works.
But the thing is, the shark was a regular shark, but then somehow there's a love story, and we have now the burst out. Then we have the mega Black Demon. That's how that happens.
All I can say is you'll notice that the co-editor in chief little thing is after Hector and my name. Luckily, because y'all are just totally whack, man. I don't know what to do.
Hey man,
but the idea, so the idea is to create a universe with lots of, because it would be really easy just to tell stories of somebody throws trash in the water and the black demon comes around. But we're like, no, we want to create a universe around this that tells like really interesting stories. And so that story set in the 80s. My story goes back 500 years to the time of the Spanish invasion, and has the black demon munching on a caravel, a Spanish caravel that's been shipped over the mountains of Oaxaca in pieces and then reassembled so that the Spanish can attack the Purépecha Empire from the water as well as from land. And we get the origin of this really mysterious figure who showed up in the ash can. His name is Mateo, and he's also called El Viejo, or the Harbinger, who seems to like have a connection to the black demon, and that gets explained. And then the third issue is set in an alternate universe, an alternate Earth during like the time of the Cold War, but where the Soviet Union has control of a big chunk of Mexico. So we're trying to tell lots of different kinds of stories that will be like really, really rich, and that will build towards something, that will build towards, frankly, Hector and I are planning a kaiju universe within the Chispa brand.
Well, I'm sold. Yeah. Like, I'm always down for that.
So down the road, expect to see the black demon face off against some pretty badass Mexican kaiju that Hector and I are cooking up in the
good read.
So much fun. Because we love this kind of stuff. So we won't give you any of the details on that because it's much better to hold you in suspense. But definitely a couple years down the road, look for lots of really great kaiju goodness. And anybody who follows my work as a writer will have read my book, Lords of the Earth, which is a Mexican kaiju novel that is set in 2017. If you haven't ever read it, I really recommend. That's something that I'm developing with another, with a screenwriter, director, into possibly a film as well. And we just love kaiju. We both grew up watching Godzilla. We just Hector is more of a fan than I am, but we love him.
Oh, good. Keep in mind that next year it'll be Godzilla's 70th anniversary, 2024. So just something to
70 years young, not bad when you're a billion-year-old dinosaur.
If you tell me that somehow, some way, we run into Godzilla in the Pacific, in Mexico somewhere.
Hey, that's up to Toho, man. We get crossovers with Toho.
I mean, you never know.
Listening, we know
Toho follows.
Yeah,
of course.
Bringing it back to 13 for a second. There's also going to be some giant creatures in the 13, right? So there's definitely a lot of love for that.
Yeah, we do love our big freaky monsters. So there are some villains potentially that can be really, really big. And so it'll be a lot of fun. But yeah, so I mean, we've got a lot of stuff coming down the pike. We've got about, probably about 19 issues of comics that are coming out just this year, starting in April with our Mashbone and Grifty release, the first issue of Mashbone and Grifty, and then Black Demon Tales, Katrina's Caravan, which is our horror anthology.
Very excited for that one too.
I do, yeah.
Definitely.
Katrina's Caravan is really great. The stories being written by some of the very best in Latinx horror. So it's going to be great. And Hector is also kicking that one off. So it's going to be, Hector's having a busy comics year. We're keeping him like writing his little fingers off.
Yeah, all good. It's a blessing. It's a blessing.
Yeah, it is a blessing. We can't complain. And then next year we'll just have more, and we're going to keep building out. The ChispaVerse is going to expand. We're already working on laying the foundation for our Caribbean Chispa team called the Hurricanes, which is going to be kind of like a Fantastic Four kind of family of Latinos.
Hey man, from the Belizean Salvadoreños that are coming out from there.
I was about to say, bro, Freddie, I'm going to have a talk with you, because the next thing after the Los Huracanes is going to be a Central American Chispa team. Because Central American,
I was waiting for. I was like, hey man, you know what? You're forgetting a very crucial part A lot of fire comes up under.
We're gonna be going down the American continent like this, bro. So we're started with like
waiting
Mexico,
for it, like, man, we need the
Central America.
We need the Salvadorian caravans that have been coming in, the quote unquote invasion. Wait for it, amigos. Aquí vienen en todo Centroamérica, you know.
Mira, te estoy diciendo, si alguna vez se te ha antojado escribir un comics, I'm going to be hitting you up. I'm going to be like, hey, Freddie.
Hey, man. Every day, man. I'm on board, bro. I got stuff ready for you, man.
I keep telling Fred to expand. You know, I've been doing all these Comic Cons and working in comics. I know, Freddie, you have this potential as well.
It's true. He tells me, Freddie, you want to help me host the convention? And I go, where is it? You're like, oh, it's in South Texas.
Qué flojera.
Hey, man, it's still in the same state. It's not like it's going to be that far away. It's just Texas. Wait,
Texas is like 5 states. Hold on.
They made a movie about an asteroid hitting the size of Texas that destroyed the planet.
I mean, yeah.
Potential.
I mean, look, what do we really lose? Some dinosaurs? It's all right.
Man. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, they were here, but didn't Kylo Ren kill the dinosaurs? I just saw a movie about
Kylo Ren killed the dinosaurs, so it's okay.
Yeah, exactly what it was.
He saved us all.
He saved us all. Yeah, I'm ready, man. I was going to mention that I know that these heroes are predominantly all Mexicanos, Mexican-American stories, cultures, Mexican-American monsters. And I'm waiting for that moment when I got el guajolote versus el conejo. You know, you never know, man.
Dude, the ChispaVerse is gonna be pan Latino, so we're like I said, we're rolling out the 13 first, just because like we're Mexican American, it just makes the most sense. But I've got a trio of amazing like Caribbean Latinos lined up to help develop the hurricanes that are just so badass. And when we can announce that, it's gonna be great. You're gonna be like, oh, okay. And then right after that, like because that's something I want to start rolling out next year. And then the following year, I want to be doing our Central American team. So I'm already starting to think, okay, who out there? Who do I know?
Right here, man. I'll ring that bell, man, a couple more times. You know, Hector knows I'm on board. I help Kevin. I just gotta put my money. What is it? Put the money
where your mouth is. Yeah.
So you guys heard it first on this podcast.
There you go, Primos. Yeah. Watch out for that. It's gonna happen. Now I can't back out. You know, technically, you guys want to start sending me a check.
You do know that My Primos podcast is a legally binding site, so that's how that works.
True, man.
You have made an agreement in public, and it is
Yeah, there's digital handshake. Yeah. Yo no me rajo, man. Aquí no. Puro. No, aquí no me rajo de nada.
I know.
Man. We're I'm excited. No, I was gonna touch on that.
We have a lot of respect.
I knew it was coming. You know?
Yeah. And this is good that we're having this conversation, because it is, I have a lot of respect for you, and when I'm thinking about it, like, you're one of the first people that I'm thinking of, and so we'll hit you up.
Well, thank you. And no, I mean it. David, you and Hector knows I've known Hector for years, and Kevin, of course, is part of the fam here too. Like, I've always shown respect and love for Latino creators in general. From every facet of it, everything. And I'm excited how Chispa has brought that availability, because my kid's 13 years old and he wants to do art. He wants to create. And I keep telling him, like, hey, we have Latino creators. Look, he's a Latina. She's a Latina. He's a Latino. He's writing this. Let's go look at this. Let's buy the books, So the more and more that we can go ahead and do that and show kids, it's going to be the future. And I hate to use it again, but like, this is our, X-Men, our Avengers, all this, our Justice League, whatever you want to call it. Chispa de los 13, this is going to be the start. And I'm excited for it to grow and just kind of.
Yeah, it's for the young people and for us old kids too, but definitely like the younger generation, they need this kind of representation. And we've got
you mean like people who would be turning 18 within the next year and might realize that they are themselves a Chispa.
Yeah. Who literally this month were turning 18 and have just discovered their powers, and will be, I'm sure there'll be newscasts about them really, really soon. Oh my God. For the listeners, like, literally the birthdays of the 13 are all on March. And I think like maybe the Coneca's the beginning of April. I can't remember.
No, I'm excited for you guys. And I think that it's just exciting.
Yeah, so I mean, people just keep an eye out. Follow us on social media, Chispa Comics on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook.
Will be announced on TikTok through Kevin Garcia.
Yeah. If we could figure out a way to Hector and I are not TikTokers, but if Kevin can figure that shit out, would be.
I spent a year watching TikTok every day, so I'd be like, okay, I think I'm ready. And then I was like, all right, so I've been doing it now for since December, so it's working out.
Yeah.
Cool. I do have an account, so like if you do say something about it, tag me.
Wait, are you saying we're not mutuals right now?
We are. I people probably don't even know of my existence, frankly. So.
Well, then you better follow me so I can follow you back. So when you do eventually post things, I can tag you or vice versa.
Sounds like a plan.
Cool.
No, well, guys, I want to thank you guys for joining, talking about Los 13 and 13. Definitely going to hear stuff coming down the line. We have the film coming out next month.
Yeah.
So we're going to hear more of that, I'm sure. So where can people learn more? I mean, where can people go seek this stuff out? Obviously, the diehard fan base here at My Primos podcast, they're getting a scoop. But where can they go? What socials? Where can they go find this information, Hector?
They can find us at Chispa through Instagram as well as Twitter and Facebook for the latest and greatest at Chispa Comics. Also, keep in mind that we have Black Demon coming out April 12th, so please call your local comic book shop to order it, as well as Katrina's Caravan coming out in May as well. And then we'll have Thanks for Amina and Mushroom and Grifty premiering in June.
Right.
So please keep an eye on those books on previews to order that.
And we can also learn more about Chispa through scoutcomics.com, right?
Right.
And David, where else can we find you online?
You can find my website is davidbowles.us, and my social media handle is at David O. Bowles, like on all platforms. That's the one I use. So you can find me like
your Irish name.
Yes, my San Patricio last name. And Hector is almost always at El Peso Hero.
El Peso Hero.
Yeah. So please follow us to find out more. And you can also, like I said, you can order the comics at your local comic shop on Amazon. Just
get out there and order it, people, is what he's saying. If you want more of this,
it's not that you can order it, Primos. It's that you are going to order it.
You need to and go make it happen. Definitely.
Support.
David, I know you guys gotta run here soon, but I wanted to say, David, that definitely want to thank you for coming on, Hector as well. And I want to invite you to come back, man, because I want to talk about the Secret of the Moon Conch. I saw that a little bit. I read about it. I want to talk about that. I love time travel, and that's something to do with time travel. And I want to pick your brain, man. So hopefully next time you can come on and talk about that.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's my novel with Guadalupe Garcia Macon. It's coming out June 6th. I'd love to talk to you about it. I think you'd dig it a lot. So, yeah.
Oh, man. Awesome.
Let's make a date.
Let's do it. Well, Primos, of course, thanks you guys for listening tonight. No, go support these creators. Go look at Chispa, Scout Comics, David, of course, Hector, and of course, Mr. Kevin Garcia, Mr. Mono Mythic, KevinGarcia.com. He's a TikTok superstar, helping get us to where we can be known as he is. But thank you guys for listening.
I exist on TikTok. It's close enough.
Dude, you have enough pull to make it happen. He had a lot. He did a whole event with different creators. He's all about it, man. Don't ignore this man. He's gonna pull and make everything happen for everybody. Well, thanks for listening. I'll let everybody have a great night. Thank you for joining us. Adios.
And all the Chispas out there, keep shining.
There we go.
Come on, it's a tagline. It's gonna be a tagline.
Yeah, it's something. We got to come up with something better.
That was fun, guys.